Today we're going to be recapping Week 10 of the NFL season. And of course, this week I did not do very, very well. I went 6-8 this week, probably the worst that I've had all season, really. So let's jump right into it. Let's see how this week went. Starting off with the Falcons and the Panthers. I picked the Falcons to win, and the Panthers win. Pretty forgettable game, honestly. This is really just a battle of who's going to finish right behind Tampa. And Carolina, I guess, is going to finish second, maybe. Or Atlanta just had an off game. I don't know. But the Panthers really had it the whole way, and the Falcons just couldn't hang and take over the Panthers. Next up, we got the Seahawks and the Buccaneers, the Munich game. Tom Brady sitting at 44, 45 years old in year fucking 35, I guess. Totally kidding, but the Buccaneers came out. They dominated in the first half. Really, the first quarter was just boring. And, I was at work when this happened really early in the morning, so I didn't get to see too much of the game, but I just saw, no points were put up in the first quarter, and Tampa at one point had, I think, a 21-3 lead, I want to say. And they had a relatively large lead over the Seattle Seahawks, but unfortunately, the Buccaneers were able to hold on. Fortunate for the Bucs, but unfortunate for everyone that wanted the Bucs to lose. And I actually picked the Buccaneers in this one, so I guess it helped, but Tampa won that one. Next up, we got Detroit at Chicago. Detroit ended up winning that game after Chicago blew, I think, a 30-17 lead. They lose yet another one-score game, and Justin Fields had yet another terrific game. Trust me, I should know. My fantasy team got destroyed by Justin Fields and the Bears. Just Justin Fields, but, you get the idea. Justin Fields went out and had a pretty nice game, and the Lions overall, they were able to hang. They did very solid as a unit, as a team. I didn't really watch too much of this game, but I just remember that Justin Fields had a pretty nice game overall. Next up, we're going to jump over here to the Texans and the Giants. The Texans were able to hang in there with the surprisingly good New York Giants, who now sit at 7-2 and are now a game behind the Eagles in their division. Thank you, Washington. But the Giants were able to hang on. Defensively, they were stout, and offensively, they did enough to beat the Texans. Not much else needs to be said. Looking at the Saints and the Steelers, I know a lot of people were picking the Saints, and I heard that TJ Watt was coming back, and I almost picked the Steelers for that reason, but I didn't. My dumb self decided, hey, we're going to go with the Saints. But no, the Steelers came out, their defense looked good, and Kenny Pickett got his first official start. First official win in a start. I know he beat the Buccaneers, but Trubisky started that game, so technically it doesn't count. But the Steelers, they got the win here. Do I think it's going to help them get to the playoffs? No. They still got a long way to go, but this win definitely helps them, for any consolation points. And next up, we have what a lot of people are calling the game of the week. We have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Buffalo Ravens because they blew a 17-point lead. Oh my goodness. The Bills really looked at the Baltimore Ravens and said, we want to blow a 17-point lead as well and lose another close game. The Bills have a combined 8 points in 3 losses. No, they've lost by a combined 8 points in 3 losses. The Bills, they were up 27-10, and it looked like they were just going to romp the Vikings, but an 81-yard touchdown from Dalvin Cook made it, not as much of a blowout anymore. It didn't really make it a blowout at all. Despite being at home, the Buffalo Bills, they ended up falling short to the Minnesota Vikings and afternoon Kirk Cousins, who continues to dominate teams in the afternoon. Defensively, they were able to force 4 turnovers, 3 of which coming from Allen, 2 interceptions, 1 on the 4th, and 1 at overtime, and then Josh Allen fumbled on the goal line. Or really, the Bills fumbled on the goal line. I don't know who to blame on the fumble there. Allen mishandling it or the center just misplacing it. I don't really know. All the Bills needed to do was get it out of the end zone and they win the game. Because the Bills' defense, despite not having guys like Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, Greg Rousseau being another one, the Bills were actually able to hold the Vikings to 23 points, but then the Vikings scored a defensive touchdown, bringing their total up to 30 because of the extra point from Greg Joseph. But the Vikings, they fought hard, they fought back, and they ended up getting a win over the Buffalo Bills. And my concern for the Bills, now, this was the same spot they were in last year, and Allen was having turnover troubles last year as well. Allen and the Bills are going to get it figured out, and I'm not insanely worried about the Buffalo Bills. Next up, we go to the Broncos and the Titans. Now, the Titans, they started out slow, but the Broncos, given that they have a great defense, I mean, it's very easy to see why. Derrick Henry and the Titans came back, and they ended up shutting down the Broncos' offense, which, I mean, isn't very hard for any professional team, I guess. And then the offense came out, they dominated, in, I don't know, for the Broncos' defense, they dominated. The Broncos have a great defense, but the Titans came out, and they ended up having a great game, and they ended up getting it by 7. Next up, we have the Jaguars and the Chiefs. Now, this one, I think a lot of people expected to just be an absolute blowout, but touchdowns from Christian Kirk, and I believe Travis Etienne got a touchdown as well, kept this relatively close with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs obviously able to pull away. Jaguars, crazy. I think there was something where like they forced like plenty in turnover, like 2 or 3 turnovers in like the first like little bit of the game, but the Kansas City Chiefs were still able to take a 20-7 lead going into the half. That just goes to show you how much better of a team the Chiefs are than the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the Jaguars do have some sort of promise for the future, I guess. Next up, we have the Dolphins and the Dolphins and the Browns. Now, Nick Chubb was not as much of a factor as I thought it would be, and that could just be overshadowed by the fact that the Miami Dolphins absolutely clapped Cleveland's cheeks. But the Dolphins overall, defensively, they did not look bad, and offensively, they obviously look good. Tyreek Hill was not as much of an involvement in this offense as he normally was, but that doesn't matter. He still leads the league in receiving yards. But because Justin Jefferson decided he was going to go for nearly 200 yards on Buffalo's backups, he now draws to within, I believe, 88 yards of Tyreek Hill, if I'm not mistaken. He draws to within 80-something of Tyreek Hill. And Stephon Diggs is still in the third, so there you go. Next up, we have the Colts and the Raiders. Jeff Saturday making a tweet saying something about, oh, the Raiders don't look good. Ironically enough, the Colts go out and they beat the Raiders. I think if you're the Raiders, you have to be worried right now, dude. You just lost to 2 AFC South teams in a row, blowing a 17-point lead, like the Buffalo Bills did, to the Jacksonville Jaguars, to a worse team, might I add, and then you go and lose to an interim head coach. Or not interim head coach, but you lose to an ESPN analyst. How do you do that? I don't get it. Josh McDaniels needs to be fired. The Colts, I don't know what to make of the Colts. I mean, Jonathan Taylor looked good, I guess. I guess he decided, to brush that David Johnson, thing off of his shoulders and go out and just dominate the Raiders. Good win for the Colts, I guess, and now they're 4-5-1. And now we'll go over here to some of the bigger games. We got the Cardinals and the Rams. The Cardinals actually beating the LA Rams. I guess Budda Baker on Hard Knocks was tired of losing, and so were the rest of the Cardinals. They took that message to heart, and they went into LA and beat the Rams, who now dropped to 3-6. And with the Cooper Kupp high ankle sprain, it does not look like the Rams are going to be going to the playoffs anytime soon. So there you go. Cardinals, they won't be going to the playoffs anytime soon either. It really does look like it's going to be the Seahawks and or the Niners in the playoffs, winning that division. I mean, maybe we see one of them as a wild card. I think we will, but good win for the Cardinals overall. They beat the LA Rams in LA. And next up, we have probably one of the bigger shockers of the week. We have the Cowboys and the Packers. I think a lot of people expected the Dallas Cowboys to just beat the ever-living crap out of Green Bay. And with a 28-14 lead going into the fourth, it really looked like the Cowboys were going to do just that. They were going to put up another score or two and just put the Packers away. Nope, but Rodgers and the Packers, they came back. Christian Watson looking like Randy Moss with 4 catches, over 100 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Was a big factor in the Packers' win over the Dallas Cowboys. And defensively, they came up with enough stops to force overtime, and the Packers were able to nail the field goal, bringing the Cowboys down to 6-3, and now 2 games back of the division-leading Philadelphia Eagles. Division-leading and NFC-leading, really. Next up, we have the Chargers and the 49ers. The Niners defense came out and did what they needed to do against the Chargers backup, literally backup everything really, except for Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert, but that's about it. The Chargers, despite being 5-4 now, the Chargers are 5-4, but they are not looking all that bad. They are not all that bad considering all the injuries and everything that's going on. But the Niners, they are starting to, pick things up a little bit. Christian McCaffrey still looking good. Deebo Samuel looking solid. Brandon Ayuk being a great player. Kittle being solid as usual. And that defense, once again, just going out and taking care of business against the Chargers. And here we have a game that was, without a doubt, more shocking than the Packers and the Cowboys. The Commanders took care of business against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's right, you heard it. The Washington Foreskins have 5 wins now, one of which coming up against the Philadelphia Eagles. So now I guess you could say the Washington Commanders are undefeated team slayers, because a couple years back they defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they were the last undefeated team, and now the Commanders, they find themselves back in the playoff race. They are in the playoff race, the 8th seed sitting at 5-5. The Eagles still the 1 seed, but I mean, it's not a pretty loss for the Eagles. No loss is ever really pretty. They turned the ball over 3 times last night, which totaled the amount. Actually, they turned it over 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, which is more than what they had done all season long. Are the Eagles frauds? I have no idea. I don't think so. It could have just been an off game. But it was a good win for the Commanders overall. It was a team that needed a win in order to stay relevant in the playoff race, and they did just that. But let me know what you guys thought of this week down in the comments below. What game surprised you? What game did you call? What games did you enjoy the most? So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe if you're new, and click that notification bell to get all the latest news on all my latest content. And with that being said, I'll see you guys for my picks on Thursday.